We're talking actors and directors who put on the shows.
We're talking playwrights and designers who you'll want to know.
From the very first rehearsal to the final curtain call.
We might be off Broadway, but we're talking about it all.
'Cause we're two local gals
With global pals, it's everything, everything, everything theater.
with Benita
And Ellen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Everything Theater Podcast, the podcast where we talk about...
Everything theater. Hi, I'm Benita Zahn.
And I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And boy, we are so thrilled with our guest today because not only is she a Broadway star, but she's local to the 518. We're joined by Happy McPartlin. Good to see you.
So good to see you too, Benita.
And Happy is just off a very wonderful long run with Come From Away.
Yes,
And I'm going to jump right in because we have mutual friends. Happy is from the 518. And if you grew up in the area, you've been through the area, you know that she's graced local stages. And a mutual friend of ours was telling me that one time, Happy, during the run of Come From Away, you basically played more than one character because people were getting sick around you.
Yeah. I mean, COVID was a crazy thing to have happen to everybody, but particularly in theater, it was pretty nuts. And in a small show like Come From Away, for people who don't know, there's only a cast of 12. There's 6 women and 6 men, 3 female covers and 3 male covers. So we're tasked with doing at least covering 5 each person, and then you shuffle around. So quite often it might have been one person in the afternoon and a different person at night. And that happened more than one time. The craziest is when you have to jump in the middle because you're not even sure where you might be in the play. You've just been sitting upstairs, reading or, watching Netflix or doing whatever. And then they call you to the stage and then you jump in and you're like, who am I? Okay, great. Okay. I know what shirt I'm wearing. So now I know who I am.
But besides the shirt, how do you do that? I mean, most performers, most actors are very focused on their role and their character, and you've got your beforehand of getting you there. You get go.
Well, yes, we get go. And I feel like, Ellen and I were talking a little bit before we started that I'm also a Shakespeare actor. Well, that's where I got my training. I trained at the classical studio at NYU. And one of our productions, we had to sit around in a circle. It was basically just a black box room, not even a theater, just a black box room. And we had to, I was playing a woman who was supposed to have been crying for days, absolutely devastated. And I thought, how in the world am I supposed to do this? You want me to do what? And by doing that training, I remember when I accomplished it, which I actually did and couldn't believe it. I'm, looking like I've bawled for days and prepared that way. I thought, you know what, if I can do that, I can do anything. And that's what I always wanted people to believe. It's not like I'm some superhero, but it's like, if you say, can you do this? Like the answer has got to be, sure. I will figure it out. And Come From Away is very much that way. It's like it's stripped away all of the bones of like you have your process and an elaborate costume. It's just a shirt. One of the shirts is paisley and one of the shirts is black with beige flowers and one of the shirts is a blue polo. You have to put that on and immediately embody what the character is. And not only that, but people in Come From Away play multiple characters. So you're often playing a person from Newfoundland and a person from Texas and a person from Nigeria and. So really, it's sort of the stripped away thing that you have to get used to. And I feel like I was lucky enough to train that way. Some of the programs at NYU have a lot more elaborate stuff. They have better budgets and stuff like that, but classical was very bare bones. And it's just sort of like, it's all you. So stand and deliver and show me what you have without all of the trappings. And I feel like that really prepared me for a crazy job like Come From Away, which is the best gift ever.
What a fabulous way to describe that. Because I think, Ellen, that we'd agree, sometimes you get wrapped up in all this stuff around. We've all been in casts where, some of the actors you can't walk by, and don't breathe. And okay, we respect all that. But in the end, Happy, as you said, it's about stand and deliver.
And it's about a community, like, especially with the responsibility of Come From Away is that it is a real story about real people at a horrific time. And it's not about us. We used to joke that our director, Chris Ashley, who won the Tony, so he's no slouch. He was an amazing director, and he was absolutely right. We used to joke that he would say, there's no crying in Come From Away. Okay, it's a story about 9/11, and there's all of these emotional things happening, but it's not really about 9/11. It's about the reaction to 9/11 and what people did in response to that. So he said it's a 9/12 story, and it's not your job to tell the audience how to feel. It's your job to let the audience feel what they feel about it, because it is so particular and individual. And that is a great big way to tell an actor, get out of your own way, and it's not about you. And it's very freeing, actually, to just trust the storytelling and not think I have to put an emotional spin on it, because the spin is there. If the writing is good, if you are present, the spin is already there just by existing. And we don't have to worry about all of the trappings. Now, of course, that's not to say that you don't have to work pretty hard in the beginning to make sure that the dialect is spot on, and what kind of walk does this person have, if it's different, or are you just sitting in a chair, and can you indicate that something has changed, or just to physicalize that. But it's just not about us. And that was a beautiful, beautiful thing to be able to receive and be able to, like, I think I will always apply that to my work now, no matter what it is. It's not about you, it's about the story.
I feel like this is a master class.
Yeah.
How long were you with the show, Happy?
I started with the show in DC. They had local hires for the standbys, and I was living in DC at the time. I had just had my son. He was 8 months old and in a sleep regression the first day of rehearsal. So I started. Yeah, it was great. It was really great. And I started with them there, and my son was so young. I was like, I would love to go to Broadway. Maybe I should ask. Maybe I should, kind of try to get in on that. And I thought, he's too young. I had done another Broadway show, which I loved, and I had such an affinity for, and unfortunately, it didn't run. And I remember spending so much time away from my husband. And I was like, well, he gets it. He doesn't care. It's 12 weeks, right? I was like, an 8-month-old, a 1-year-old, they don't understand that. And so I'm not going to try to do it. And the first day they read the script in front of me and I heard the words aloud, I was like, you are a dummy. This is going to be a huge hit. You should have tried. But then I said, you know what? If it's meant to be, if it is meant for me, it is meant to be, as my friend Tony likes to say. And I thought, if it will happen sometime. So luckily for me, I did all the preparation in DC. We had an amazing team there. And they called about 4 months into the run and said, we would like for you to come up in October and replace in the Broadway company as a standby. So I missed a few months in the middle, but I started in 2016. So I've been with the show very, very long time. And it's been like my son's whole life. I've been with the show.
I was going to ask about that because I'm jumping into a show at Cap Rep, which is 8 shows a week kind of thing. Not nearly the commitment you had with Come From Away, but I have an 8-month-old daughter.
Oh, wow.
And it's it's like, yeah, that's such a thing that a lot of people don't talk about, that balance of family and theater, because a lot of actors don't have family, that they need to be there as a mother. So can you tell us a little bit about striking that balance in your career with your family?
Yeah, I think it's a constant. I think it's that way with any career, but it's specifically to acting or being involved even backstage at the theater or anything theater related. Like, why do we work at night, right? We're away when they're going to bed, and it's this like vulnerable, sweet time that we miss. And there's something about the choice of being an actor or being in the theater that doubles the pressure of being away, because people don't scoff at people being away during the day, working a 9 to 5 job as much as they do. Think of it, how's this theater? And we do it to ourselves as well. I do it a great deal to myself. I always felt like if it was a shorter term, like whatever you're doing cap rep, it's like, what the end date is. There's
Mm.
sort of an easier time for me if I know, okay, it's 6 weeks or it's 8 weeks, and you can almost count the days. You can count the sleeps that you'll miss or that kind of thing. I have lots of friends who go away on gigs or tour and that sort of thing, and that's a lot of what they do. But thinking, okay, if you're on Broadway and you're teching a show and opening a show, and there's all sorts of rehearsals for Tonys and press things and stuff that you may not even appear in, but you'd have to be at all the rehearsals. That's not just the 8 shows a week. That's most of the day, most days. And I just didn't think I could do that. And I think I know that I made the right choice. I came in at a great time. Of course, I wish I was in the original Broadway cast, but I was in the pre-Broadway cast, so I'll take that. And I had so much of the beautiful benefit of being in the show very early on. Being part of the original Broadway rehearsal process was actually done in DC. And then the poor standbys who joined for Broadway kind of had to throw themselves at it like just 60 miles per hour. So I struck that balance for myself at that time by making that choice. And it wasn't an easy choice to make, to say, you know what, let's not try to go to Broadway with something that we very well could go to Broadway with. But I'm really glad that I did that. And now that it's over, I have the same struggle all over again.
Mm.
Thinking about, how do you have to, if you get involved with a Broadway show that's going to go out of town, how long will you be out of town, and will it actually go to Broadway? So is it worth missing that time with your family? What season is it now? Because now my son's in full-time school, like real school, not preschool. When they're babies and they're in preschool, it's a little easier because you get to see them sort of more hours of the day. If they go to regular school, it's like, bye at 8 o'clock in the evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. If you have a matinee or you have a rehearsal that day. So I think it really depends on the time of life. And, I'm having that same struggle for myself right now, just trying to figure out like, well, what's next? And if there's an 8 show a week thing that's next, how much longer is it than Come From Away? Because Come From Away was 100 minutes and it was amazing. It was short, no intermission. So I could still get home at a reasonable hour and be able to get up at 6 in the morning with my kid,
Mhm.
I
It
have
is
a friend
hard.
who, she used to say that it was one thing, and she was full-time, she did sales, TV sales, and she said it wasn't a big deal when the kids were little. She said, but when they turned 12 and 13 is when she really felt she should have been home, because that's when the drama hits. And we're not talking about the
Yeah.
stuff you get applause for.
Yes.
But yeah, and she wasn't, and she had great help, and she's raised up wonderful kids. But it changes at each stage in your child's life. When you did Hands on a Hard Body on Broadway, no kids at that point?
No kids at that point. There was no stress, and my husband had been in a Broadway show as well, so he understood the whole situation. It wasn't like, well, why are I didn't have a muggle husband, as they say, right? I didn't have somebody who was, I don't get this. Why are you always gone? And he totally got it, and so it was completely understood, and he supported that very well. But no kids, just myself to worry about, and my husband would come in and have dinner in between shows and that sort of thing. But you still felt like, wow, this is really a lot of time away. And maybe it's also because of the focus that you have when you're part of an original creation process, and things are changing all the time, and you want to be there to support and help your cast as they're going through all of those changes. Maybe it's the focus that makes it feel so, completely insular. But no, he was cool about it. He was great about it. But I just thought, I don't know. My 8-month-old would not have been super cool about it. He would have been about a year at the time too. And that's what I just thought, he's going to be walking. He's going to be really talking. And I just don't know that I can disappear for 3 months. 8 shows a week wouldn't have been it. It would have been the 10 out of 12s and the and all of the press and stuff like that you would have to miss for. So yeah, I was very lucky to do Hands on a Hard Body. It was an amazing experience. And I'm glad I got to do one before kids too, because having that just freedom to be like, that was the dream. The dream was to get on Broadway, and I got that. And I got to have that time where I was just focused on the job and achieving what I could achieve within that dream for myself. So I really, really got to be kind of selfish about it.
Who did you play?
I was actually standby on that too. I'm a big time standby. That's what I do.
Well, you and another Niskuna native, Richard Gatta.
Yes.
Did
Yes.
swing for
Oh my
Music Man.
gosh, he's doing an amazing job. Wait, is he in New York, New York?
Yes.
He's doing New York, New York.
I think he is.
Yes, that's so awesome for him. I follow his mom on Facebook, and she's always posting, so I see what's going on with him. But it's funny,
She
like
was
I
your
don't really
teacher?
know him. We just know of each other, I think, but
Okay.
I really know him. But yeah,
You'd
he's
love him.
yeah, so I was a standby for 4 roles on that show. And unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be that it would have a long run. So I never got to do it. So we did all of that work. None of the standbys in that show went on. We did all of that work in preparation if we were needed, but we ran such a short time that nobody was needed. So I like to say I got 2 Broadway debuts. I try to look at it in the positive, because it was definitely a very, very huge disappointment when Hands on a Hard Body closed so prematurely. I had so much respect for our writers and creators that it was flabbergasting to me, because I thought it was such a wonderful story and so relatable to so many people. But it just didn't take, and that happens. You find out
We
the
did it
business.
at Park Playhouse.
Yes, I know. And I was so bummed. I was like, I wanted to come see it. I wanted to see what was happening.
And the funny thing is, Happy, is that it didn't have a good run because we got rained out. We lost a little bit more than half of our shows
Oh,
to rain.
No.
It's a great show. It's a great score. Trey Anastasio, as you know, of course, from Fish, did the music. But maybe that show's just a little snake bit.
I mean, it is possible. It definitely is. It's one of those things you really have to think about. There were some weird things that happened after that particular contest. They don't do the contest anymore because there were some kind of bad things that happened. I don't know if there was some bad juju coming up from Texas, but 'cause I loved the story. I just found it so, and maybe it was because I got to cover a lot of the tracks as well, but you just saw so many angles. We were actually just listening to the other day, and I went to go see Amanda Green, who was our lyricist, in concert on Monday night, because I love that work so much. And Douglas Wright, who wrote the book, he's opening a new Broadway play this year. And of course, Trey, I mean, he's just so stunning. I'm going to tell you a really quick Trey story, because this is so funny. So my final callback, it was Trey and Amanda and our director Neil Pepe and the casting director and a few producers in the room. And I think I was the last person. And I saw Trey going to the elevator, and I was like, oh, I don't want to trap him. It's like one of those teeny tiny New York elevators. And I was like, oh, I don't want to trap him in the elevator. And he must have seen me, popped his head out, and he was like, hey, did you need to come in the elevator? And I was like, okay. And I got in the elevator, and this man, who is just so overwhelmingly talented and so amazing, is riding down the elevator with me saying, so what's it like to tour with a musical? I mean, that's got to be so hard and so different. And I was like, do you know that you're Trey Anastasio? Do you know who you are, man? And it was just an incredible thing. That whole experience was very reflective of his personality, just everybody creating together and being sort of so fascinated by the stories of each person's life and how it all came together, just like in the story.
Well, we unfortunately they got our little notice from Zoom that we
Okay.
are running.
My God, I see that stuff, but yeah.
Yeah. But we have an ending segment, Happy, that is called the close up. It's all spitfire questions, all about you.
Okay.
So, Happy, are you ready for your close up?
I am ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille. Yes.
So, what was the moment in your life when you just knew I have to do theater?
Oh, I was 4 and I heard Andrea McArdle sing Annie, and I made my mother buy us tickets to the Broadway show, and that is when I knew I had to do it. My mother was worried I would run up on the stage and pull somebody off to join them, but I did not do that. But that's the moment I knew, and I actually got to work with Andrea McArdle later on in my career, and was amazing, amazing.
I hear she said the same about working with Happy McPartlin.
I'm sure she wouldn't remember, but we got to actually like fight because we did Les Mis together, and she was Fantine, I was a factory girl. So we literally got to fight, and she would make faces.
Was Jeannie Fitzgibbons in the cast when you did?
No, this was at Ogunquit Playhouse. I think
Okay.
Andrea did it several places because she was so good. I saw her do it on Broadway.
Now, speaking of your mother, what did she say when you said, I'm going to go do theater for a living?
I think she said, okay. All right, well, just make sure that you think about other things. That's what my mom always kind of did, is she would always sort of say, like, there was never a no. It was, well, just make sure that you consider the whole other side of things. So my parents were very supportive in that way, but also very practical, which helped me get through a very long period of, waiting, because we are all waiting a lot. So that was very good for me to always see the other side of it too.
And you didn't directly go right into studying. You went to New York first and auditioned for a while first. Tell us a little bit about that decision.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to do West Side Story at the Park Playhouse, and a lot of the cast members from New York were like, "You have to come to New York. Like, that you're very talented, and you have to come to New York." And I was like, I am, I should." And I was really nervous about going to college and then deciding I didn't want to be an actor. So I decided right then and there, I was like, let me see if I can graduate early and go down to New York and try it before college, because I didn't want to go to college for something and then be like, never mind, I'm going to do something else. Like I wanted to really focus on what I was studying. And I thought, if I don't want to be an actor, I better find out now. So I went down and I thought it was so difficult, and I lived on like $4 a day. And I still wanted to do it. It was like horrific, and I still wanted to do it. And that's how you really know, like, okay, if you're in for the dark, you're in for it. And it was really great. That's what I did. Yeah. So I was down there for about 6 months, and then worked a summer stock gig and went right into NYU.
What play out there, whether you worked on it or have seen it or just listened to it a million times, has had a huge impact on your life, and why?
Um, let's see. I think there's two, one that I've worked on and one that I haven't. Tommy was playing when I was fresh to college, and I saw that over and over and over again. And there's so many people who are now Broadway leading ladies and leading men who got their start in the ensemble of that show: Alice Ripley, Norm Lewis, Sherry Renee Scott, and it was so incredible that I thought, I want to be as dynamic as every single person in that ensemble. And they were all incredible leads later in their careers. And it also made me know how much I wanted to do rock musicals. Like, I wasn't always like I wasn't like a legit musical person. I liked them, but I didn't tend to get them. I tended to get things that were more rock. And I said, you know what, like, lean into it, embrace it. You can do Shakespeare if you want to, but if it comes to musicals, it's probably going to be more contemporary and rock. And so I leaned into that. And the other one that is a huge influence to me is Next to Normal. I saw that, and, talking about what we talked about earlier, if you want to do something where you're like, you have to do everything with no pretense and just let it go, and have no trappings, and just be free, and give everything to the audience and let them feel the feelings. That was a perfect example of that. And I was lucky enough to do that, and made a huge impact on my life. And it made me think I will always want to do work as good and specific as I did in that show, because it was so important. It should be for every project I ever do.
Are there any projects on your bucket list, roles that you think I got to do someday?
There's so many. I mean, there's so many. I feel like I haven't even scratched the surface, because I like to say I've been 50 since I'm 15 and I'm still not 50. Like I've always been set up, like I'm a Mame or a Vera. I'm in the older fashion musicals. I'm always like the older part. And so there's so many. I mean, I can't even really name. There's a lot that have passed me by because I was 50 since I'm 15, and so I was never young enough for um, but yeah, there's really honestly so many. There's so many. The Light in the Piazza, I would love to do Margaret and the Light in Piazza. I mean, I would have loved to do Tommy. Now I'd be like, I'll be the granny in the back that you're like, why is there a granny in Tommy? I don't know, but she's there. Walker and all.
And last question, what advice would you give to people who are pursuing a Broadway career?
The best advice I could give to someone pursuing a Broadway career is stay in your own lane. Everybody's journey is so vastly different than everybody else's. When I was first starting at NYU, we had a class where all of these really successful directors and actors and writers would come in and talk to us, and everyone said, like, if you can do anything else, don't do this. And they were all super successful, and I was like, why are they so negative, but you get it once you get out into it, because it is so difficult. And you really compare yourself and your success to everybody else's success. And, I had a girlfriend from Niskayuna who had done 3 Broadway shows by the time she was 26. And I had no hope of breathing near a Broadway stage by the time I was 26. Our careers were so vastly different that it doesn't pay to compare yourself with anybody else, because you are not anybody else, and everybody's career is completely different. So I think that's an incredibly powerful thing that we never give ourselves the credit for. It's like, you are a unique individual. That means your journey will also be unique. And there is no ladder that goes up in show business. It is, some people go right there. Some people go this way, over here, over here, over here, fly around the universe and come back. But if you can just trust your own journey and trust yourself and what you have to offer, that is the most important thing that you have to give. Get out of your own way about what the journey should be, and just let it be who you are and what your journey should be.
Happy McPartlin, most fabulous way for us to wrap this up before Zoom wraps it for us. Thank you. Break legs and whatever else you'll be doing. We'll be looking for you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Benita and Ellen. Thank you so much for having me. Great to see you.
And for our listeners, thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you next week. I'm Ellen.
And I'm Benita. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening to the Everything Theater podcast. Special thanks goes out to Alice Grinling for our photography and Justin Friello for composing our amazing theme song. Please remember to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to share your thoughts or what's going on in your theater community, you can reach out to us on social media or through our email at everythingtheaterpodcast@gmail.com. Till next time, it's everything, everything, everything.